In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Lizzie Haynes, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies, and knights to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Russell Guest, and joining me today is my good friend and co-host from deep in the heart of Texas, Mr. Dustin Melbardis. How you doing, sir?
Doing awesome. Ready for a little blast from the past.
Me too. And I'm excited. We have a first-time guest today, coming to you from the Steel City of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It is your special guest, Will Gorsuch. How you doing?
Hi there. Oh, thank you. I'm good. Very good. Thank you very much for having me, gentlemen.
Let's break the ice here a little bit, Will, and I got to ask you one of the most important questions. This can determine whether you can be friends with somebody sometimes. This is one of those things. Who is your favorite actor to portray Batman?
See, this is a great question because I have two avenues depending on which way we go, because we also have the live action, and then there's those of us who have been fans of the animated, which we're going to be talking about today. So I will bite the bullet, and I know it's not a popular opinion, but I enjoyed Ben Affleck's Batman. I know the movies, say what you will, but when you break down Ben Affleck's Batman, his Bruce Wayne, like his figure was there, the smarts was there, and like the passion. And when you learn about Ben Affleck and how he wanted to do a Batman role, and how like it was like Warner Brothers just crushed that dream into submission, and I was like, and it's just like, oh, what could have been. But yes, and if we go into the animated spectrum, I am a big fan of Peter Weller's Batman from the Dark Knight Returns. That was like the animated 2-series movies from the DC animated vault. Big RoboCop fan, so I said Peter Weller having done the voice of Batman and Bruce Wayne for like this older, like I said, this aged Batman really, really spoke to me.
All right, I'm going to go one step further. Who's your favorite Joker?
Growing up, obviously I had Nicholson, and then as I got older, I will say I will go in down the mainstream and will put Heath Ledger as that one, as my favorite Joker, simply because of the time, the story, the setting. And in terms of animated, I was really impressed with John DiMaggio's version. That was in Batman Under the Red Hood. That was the other DC animated feature. That is like Bender from Futurama. So if you want to hear Bender do like a nice Joker cackle, then Under the Red Hood is definitely the way to go.
That was like 8 years ago, right?
Correct. Yes, yeah. It is an older one by all things considered, but it is still really a well put together adaptation.
Not nearly old enough for our show, though. We're 10 years or older. So
okay.
Yeah. Dustin, how about you? Who's your favorite Batman?
Michael Keaton all the way,
yes.
Forever. It's the Tim Burton style and Michael Keaton. There is just something about it that will always be special. I think other movies are better than that movie. I think there's a lot of that is just a microcosm of the time, and it's that movie is so stylish, and that it's something I can't ever take away from it. And to answer the Joker question, it of course is Heath Ledger. You're not like walking down the everybody thinks this path. It was as good of a performance as maybe has ever been done. A buddy of mine, we've talked about how the Dark Knight isn't just a great comic book movie; it's one of the best movies ever made. And part of it is due to Heath Ledger's portrayal. My second place is Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, so both of our animated features. And I will say, for me, the Batman writing, the dialogue writing in the Justice League TV shows, I loved that Batman a lot. There was a second Justice League Unlimited, I think. I never watched that, but I do know that those original Justice League series, I thought every portrayal of those characters was really well done right at the turn of the century.
If you like the Justice League run, you should check out that Unlimited run. It is very in keeping with the first run. It's almost just a rebrand of the same show that just started bringing in more side characters.
Yeah.
I agree. That was really a nice amp up. There's even, we'll talk about it later in the show, there's even a nod to Batman Mask of the Phantasm in the Justice League Unlimited series as well, we'll get to.
And for me, Dustin, you took a lot of my thunder. Like, so much of my thunder's gone. I've got just a little rim shot left after that. I mean, yeah, I'm with you on every
storm for you too.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Keaton's my Batman, and Kevin Conroy is my second place. He's great. And I do like Christian Bale a lot, so there's no knock on him or attack to him. I think it was on the Real Genius episode that Lizzie said Val Kilmer will always be her Batman.
Yes, she did.
I question that. I think that's questionable, but we still love you, Lizzie. And we can still be friends. You didn't say George Clooney, and that's important. So my Joker is Mark Hamill. I'm going all the way first place with Mark Hamill. I think, I like Jack Nicholson a lot. I like Heath Ledger a lot. Ledger's a little dark. His movie's heavy. And I think Mark Hamill does the great level of fun, mean, like the perfect balance.
And funny.
Yeah.
Like, Russell, that matters to you. And it matters to me too, is to be able to be fun, mean, menacing, and funny. Like, punchlines that work. I dig that.
Yes.
Especially since humor is so subjective. Like, we can all have a favorite Joker. We can all have a favorite style of humor. We can have that dark. We can have the slapstick. We can have the Cesar Romero, like, white over the mustache.
I actually like that still.
No,
I grew up as a kid watching Adam West Batman. I like it. I don't care what anybody says. I'll defend it.
I mean, some days you just can't get rid of a bomb, and I totally understand.
I'd love to have in my vehicle, I'd love to have a canister of bat shark repellent.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. What is the last movie you watched, Will?
Great one. Deadpool and Wolverine. I actually just got to see that recently. That was definitely something
fun
to see in theaters. Definitely, for sure.
Oh, man. Dustin, how about you? What's the last movie you saw?
This one is from the same year as original Batman, is Jackknife with Robert De Niro, Ed Harris, and Kathy Baker. It is two vets come back from Vietnam, and one's a trucker. And it is something I'm so surprised it ever just came across my radar. My buddy was watching it. I'm like, let me sit down and watch it with you. And it's okay. And I think the thing that's interesting is it's Robert De Niro playing a role you would have never expected. Somebody that doesn't have stuff going for him. And I think he brings such a gravitas to so many roles that in this role, he's just kind of a guy. That's interesting to see and a fun watch. I wouldn't say the movie's great, but it was like, hey, this kind of changed things up. And same thing goes for Ed Harris's role. He is not someone to be looked up to in this movie. So, Jackknife from '89. It's all right.
You heard it here first. Dustin said it. Robert De Niro, good at acting.
Good at acting.
Listen, Academy, it's time to give out that award.
The last movie I saw is very fitting for this as well. My son got to the age where I thought it was just time, and we did '89 Batman, so we did Michael Keaton Batman, and with my son, he loved it. So yeah, he absolutely loved it. So I don't get to watch most of the movies we cover. I don't get to watch with him, and he watched this movie with me in preparation for this podcast. So if I'm in a particularly good mood, that's probably the combination of just coming off all this Batman high here. And I'll just mention it right now. Every night for however many episodes there were, before we'd go to bed, we'd do shower, bath, whatever, and then we'd read. But before that, before we'd read, we would watch one episode of Batman the Animated Series every night. So I am fresh off of having seen pretty much every episode of Batman the Animated Series a few months ago. And so I never do this much prep for the show, and I didn't do it specifically for the show. It's just serendipity. So I had actually just watched The Mask of the Phantasm, and then Will texted us and said, would you like to do this? And I was just like, man, I will never be more ready for this.
Yeah, it really was.
So we're glad that you're here, and we're glad to be covering this, Will. And I guess we've blown our cover. Dustin, what movie are we covering today?
We are doing from 1993, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm.
All right. This stars Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill, Dana Delany, and the release year is 1993, and the budget is $6 million. It only grosses $5.6 million domestically. That makes me sad that it's not a big moneymaker. The filmmakers blame Warner Brothers for the unsuccessful marketing campaign, which is commonly attributed to the rushed production schedule at the studio's last-minute decision to make this not just a TV production, or at-home release, but an actual theatrical release. So, despite this, The Mask of the Phantasm eventually turned in profit with various home media releases. It is a cult classic. And as Will mentioned, if you're of a certain age, which I'm certainly at that age, this has a special place in many of your hearts. So it only comes in at 139th in the box office. Movie that places ahead of it is Swing Kids. And it comes in front of the classic Three of Hearts. So, yep.
Yeah, right.
Nobody knows these movies. It's okay. But one movie you would know is the number one movie from 1993. Jurassic Park, which we covered on episode 85.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Retro Movie Roundtable. And
It's a franchise nowadays.
They've made a couple, I think.
Also a big deal. Yes. IMDb seems low, gives The Mask of the Phantasm at 7.8. Rotten Tomatoes critics higher at 83%. The audience score even higher at 88%. It lost to The Lion King. So when they reviewed this film for their show, Gene Siskel and Robert Ebert both said they regretted not seeing this in the theatrical release. Siskel in particular liked the film, and he compared it favorably to other Batman films, such as Batman Returns in 1992, which we covered in one of our first 10 episodes, and Batman Forever, which will always have Lizzie's Batman, Val Kilmer, in it. So, Will, I take it you've seen this movie before. You seem to be well-versed in the animated world of DC Comics here.
I tried.
What was your first time with Mask of the Phantasm, and what's it like coming back to it now?
Great question. First off, I never had the opportunity to see it in theaters. I grew up kind of in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. You had one end of the state was Pittsburgh, the other end was Philadelphia. So right in the middle, you kind of had to take what you could in terms of your entertainment values. So in theaters, it was not playing close to me. So I had to wait till the following year, post 1994, after the holiday season. And I got it for my birthday on VHS. I remember, when you're a little kid, you start to recognize those clamshell cases that Disney would start to put out on their VHSs. Even when they're wrapped in Christmas wrapping or birthday wrapping, you'd be like,
you
"Oh,
can
that's
feel them." Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You could just kind of feel the empty sides. Oh, this is a movie. I have a feeling. And since this was the only movie I really asked about or talked about. Lo and behold, I opened up. It was a black clamshell. It was I never had Disney was doing all the white ones and everything. Mm-hmm. And then I think the only other black one I had at that time was the Nightmare Before Christmas. But yeah, no, this was as soon as you open it, that color, the poster. I said I've got it for pretty much the only version I don't have handy is the VHS, and that's at my parents' in storage. That was my first experience with it. I watched it. I loved it. Yeah, no, it's and since then I've seen it almost at least once a year or so.
How's it aging for you? You're now an adult, so do you feel like this is changing for you as you've gotten older?
I'm feeling I'm appreciating the more drama parts, because when you're a kid and you're coming off the Batman the Animated Series, you only have a half hour. So during that 22, 23 minutes, they have to cram in so much. They have to cram in the action. They have to cram in the mystery. They're who's the bad guy? Who's the rogue? Who's doing the bad thing? So there's not a whole lot of time for character development for a lot of some of the characters, other than just seeing them come back later in other non-sequential stories. So for me, the biggest thing was getting used to the flashbacks and getting used to the parts where we're not seeing Batman being Batman. We had to sit through a lot of Bruce Wayne stuff. I remember as a kid going oh, the flashbacks, oh, the pace, they just kill the pacing. Even before I knew what movie pacing was, as a kid, I was oh, these flashbacks just kill. Get to the Batman, get to the Phantasm. That's what I'm here to see. And as when you get older, you're okay, I see what they were going. It has more depth, it has more value. And as an adult, in a kid's with a kid mindset, I still find that this movie still finds ways to entertain, because it has that layer, and it has those extra layers of the onion, for lack of a better term, quoting Shrek. But there's a lot of stuff to this movie that I really enjoy, even going back to it now as an older, and just seeing the scenes that I thought were not as good as a kid, looking back to them now, that's now one of my favorite scenes. We'll talk about that later. But no, it still holds up in my eyes. There may be some pacing, but I really don't think it's that big of a deal for what it is. I really do still enjoy it to this day. I really do.
Wonderful. Dustin, how about you? Had you seen Batman Mask of the Phantasm before?
I was thinking back, when you're a young kid, your memories aren't all fully there, and I remember precisely where I was. I remember the angle that the television was at in the room. I remember that we had played some Sega Genesis, I think, when when I first watched this, and I remember that this was right around Hurricane Andrew. These are the things I remember about this. And
That's a lot, actually.
the other thing I remember about Mask of the Phantasm is I remember the twist, and that's all I'll say. That is weird when you come back to it 30 years later. Like, how do you try to appreciate this when you know? And luckily, I can switch little things in my brain to be like, how am I going to be entertained by this? I still find it entertaining. There are plenty of franchises where each episode is Monster of the Week or has its own little story. Not everything has a serial that comes through. And for Batman or for any other sort of comic book or adventure kind of thing, it can frequently be just, all right, let's get this story in and out. And so another way I approached it this time is, am I just watching a long TV episode? Because if I think of it that way, man, is this incredible that I just get all of this stuff for one episode. And then when you think about it, I think, what are we at? 74 minutes, right? It's a pretty short movie.
Yeah, it's not even 90.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm going like, there's quite a bit here, and they are. I like how you said it. There's a little more layers to this onion, and whether or not that's something you were the one that just watched all of these animated series episodes. I hadn't seen one in a very long time, but even still, you do have to know who Batman is. It's okay if you don't. It will drag you along with it for a little bit, but that if you have just the baseline there, that like, who is Batman, what is Batman, what's the conceit the audience knows that nobody else does, you're still in for a great time. And I was expecting a great time, even though it's been a while, and it delivered.
All right. I saw this when it came out, not in the theaters, but probably from the movie rental store. And it was a big hit for me. I watched it multiple times. I even saw it on TV later. I think at the syndicated slot where it would come on every afternoon when I'd come home from school. I remember getting this being like, "Oh, cool, this is great." I remember like, what a special treat this is. And then I didn't see it for a really long time. So the last time I saw it, I might have been 9, 10, something like that. So almost 3 decades have gone by, nearly. And I came back to it, and it's funny, Dustin, I did not remember the twist at all. I remembered the Phantasm being awesome, and I remembered certain aspects of this being like the creation of Batman. Like I knew that was there, but somehow everything about the twist was gone for me. So it felt like a whole fresh set of characters. And as I've become through this show a big fan of noir, through mystery, and through the 40s noir classic films, this strikes my, I don't know what you call it, fancy for that for so much. Like I really like the style of Batman the Animated Series. It really has that caper kind of detective stuff from the 40s. It's not literally set in the 40s, but it's ambiguously set in the 40s. And it really worked for me. I liked the style of this so much. If anything, I did wish there were even more of it, because honestly, as an adult, I found myself sitting there going like, it's been 30 years since they put this thing out. We could remake this with a live action movie and it would be excellent. Like, I like the story on this a lot. This, I like the Burton origin of Batman a fair bit, where I won't give too much away about that one. They do some things that are different with that one, but to me, this might be one of my favorite Batman origins. So my son just got this for his birthday. It stole the show for when he opened it up, like much like your story there, Will. He had seen it before we had rented it, and he loved it, so I thought he should just have it. I bought him a 2-pack that has Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero in it, which is another Batman the Animated Series movie. It's shorter than this. It did not get a theatrical release. And Dustin, I think you mentioned like feeling a little bit like a TV episode.
66 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero feels like an episode that's just longer and better, which is awesome. I still like it. I mean, I no knock on it, but this is a lot better. And this is the main event in that 2-pack. So oddly enough, you could buy the 2-pack for only a couple bucks more than the single pack. So good value for me there. So
Some great bat value.
yeah. So anyway, we will spoil Batman and the Mask or the Phantasm, and don't take this as a lightweight kid show that you don't think this has stuff that you don't want spoiled for you. So we will be back after these messages.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
We are back, same bat time, same bat channel. Dustin, do you want to refresh people's memories for those who haven't seen Batman the Mask of the Phantasm since 1993?
So I love that you did the same bat time, same bat channel. Oh, the Caped Crusader is out tonight, this time busting up a counterfeit operation. After busting some skulls, our main mafioso is confronted by a different masked entity, introduced to themselves as the Angel of Death, before scaring poor old Chucky Saul into driving off a building. Media stories confuse the reports and peg Batman as the killer, egged on by city council person Arthur Reeves. Commissioner Gordon won't believe it, of course. Reeves is contacted by Andrea Beaumont, returning to Gotham after a long hiatus, an acquaintance of Bruce Wayne's from long ago, the woman who finally made him happy, content enough to propose, but leaves in the dead of night under mysterious circumstances. While other mobsters fall to the dubbed Phantasm, Batman works towards deducing who the killer is, leading him to a cabal of crooked conmen linked to Andrea's father, Carl Beaumont. We learn that Andrea left Gotham because her dad owed money to the wrong people, and their tightening of the screws to him led them to flee Gotham, destroying both of their lives, and leading to her father's death at the hands of one, the Joker. The Joker actually unravels this mystery first, that the masked phantasm is actually Miss Beaumont herself, returning to Gotham to get revenge on all the criminals associated with her father's demise. On the doorstep of a massive explosive detonation, Batman pleads with Andrea. Though he and Alfred understand the dangers of pursuing revenge, Andrea had embraced them, leading to a plea that falls on deaf ears, as Andrea and the Joker are enveloped in the explosion while Batman swims to safety. While he returns to crime fighting, we are left with a golden locket left in the Batcave, a cruel reminder of what Bruce has lost twice.
So, Will, let's talk about the story here. This is based on some content from, Batman Year 1 and Year 2. Let's talk about this. You seem very versed in this. Tell us, what do you like about the story here?
Sure, for sure. As you brought up, it does have elements and it has some inspirations from Batman Year 1 and Year 2, specifically Year 2. Both of these vigilantes will kill. They have lethal methods and they will go at fighting crime, and they both have an affinity towards stopping mobsters. To that end, there's also the Bruce romance. As for the Phantasm, there's that whole parallel where Bruce is like torn between a quote-unquote normal life and the life he has decided that he wants to take up the Batman mantle. And we see that in the movie too. We have those flashbacks where he's learning and he's training to be the Batman and stuff like that. We get to see, like, as you say, it is an origin story. And as a kid, I find origin stories to be a little bit boring because I already know the origin. Like, get to it, get to the good stuff, get to the stuff that I want to see. But as I said, coming back to this movie as an older adult, you're like, you kind of get that layer, you get those extra bits that you really looked over as a kid. And as I said, there's the themes of the movie. For example, both movie and the graphic novel, especially Year 2, do explore a vigilante who crosses moral boundaries that Batman does not. The Phantasm, like the Reaper, represents a darker side of Batman, illustrating what Bruce Wayne might become if he allowed his pursuit of justice to be overtaken by vengeance. We'll talk about it later in one of my favorite quotes. There's going to be something very similar to that. They talk about the duality, the identity struggles, like they're two sides of the same coin, Andrea Beaumont and Batman. Like, one's one bad day. We come back to that idea with the Joker's like, all it takes is one bad day to make somebody go snap. Like that one is in The Killing Joke. But in this instance, Andrea Beaumont's bad day was the loss of her father, was the loss of her life that she knew of it. There's the their crime-fighting elements. Both stories prominently feature Gotham's organized crime, with Batman and the Vigilante from Year 2 confronting city's mobsters. And Mask of the Phantasm, for example, the Phantasm targets crime bosses systematically, similar to the Reaper's approach in Year 2.
That's great stuff there. Dustin, Batman is the world's greatest detective. There is a mystery at hand here. There's romance involved. There's mobs. We got the Joker mixing it up here late in the movie. What are you loving here about this story?
The commonality in Gotham that the mob's around and powerful enough to have hundreds of important mobsters. Hundreds of them. There are some bigger fish, but it's important to remember that Gotham isn't just filled with other monikered supervillains. Most of what Batman's doing, if he's fighting crime, he's fighting a large organization, which I like to be reminded of, is that he's got plenty of work throughout the rest of the week if there's not a supervillain around. So there's a little bit of comfort to it, where it's like, oh yeah, he's gonna bust these guys up, and it's a counterfeit operation. Okay, fine. There's no stakes to that for us. We just need to see Batman go and do his thing, which is fun. That's great, but that's not why we're here. We're here. That's the backdrop for something new. That's why we were so excited. That's why the poster and the movie box that you described so well is so interesting, with the Phantasm mask on it. Even though that character's screen time is quite low, it's still a Darth Vader-esque kind of allure. Ooh, what's this? There's this smoke around the Phantasm. It introduces himself as like the Angel of Death, Scythe Hand. These are things that are like, what are we dealing with? We have been used to for 30 years at this point cool interpretations of the same villains that we've seen a lot. And this is something new. And I think the 90s was a great time to do that. The romance aspect always seems to me a little bit tacked on, in that I'd rather think that Bruce Wayne doesn't have time for these women, or that he is purposefully keeping the distance there. And Batman media always tries to remind you, well, no, this one's special though. And they do it a lot.
They have Vicky
They
Vale
do it
from the
every
first
time.
movie, Chase Meridian from Batman Forever, Catwoman.
Not this one though, Bruce. This one's special. And Alfred gives that little nod. I think this one's special, Master Wayne. Like, no, but it's okay. We're used to it, and that's Batman. It's what you're gonna get.
It's like Lou Bega said in Mambo number 5. They're all special, Dustin.
Didn't expect Lou Bega to come
I
up
was going to
on
say,
this
it's a
podcast.
deep cut there. Oh, man.
It's a retro show now.
Oh, man. Retro
Yeah.
Music Roundtable.
I gotta say, all of the pieces of a Batman movie or Batman story are there. The twist we get is fun. Honestly, it's, I think 40 minutes in is when we get, hey, here's the Joker too. I mean,
I know.
like that's where he's not on the box, right? This is where we're like, oh, we have this is coming together, and we've got kind of a big standoff, and there's other stuff going on with the flashback stuff. I'm with you, Will, that I think as a kid I was sort of like, is this what I'm interested in? We also know, and it kind of has to be redone every new reboot, is origin story time. And that's also okay. Now, when it becomes the formula for every superhero franchise, that's when it can get tiring. And I know that me and Lizzie have talked about being tired of superhero stuff. It's going to take a lot for me to go, I must see this Deadpool and Wolverine, Will. I have to see it. But it's going to be the first I've seen in maybe 3 or 4 years. I just don't see them anymore because you are forced, like, we're gonna have to relive another origin story, and that's all right. This one, with the promise he makes at the gravestone, has a lot of weight for a child, but I think it's pretty cool to see the emotional weight that Bruce Wayne is carrying around. And we do have a lot of Bruce Wayne time instead of just Batman time. And that is also kind of new, is that we're getting to see Bruce Wayne, the guy, the person, interact with the world and his own demons, as opposed to Batman fighting crime. So this is getting us the staples we love with in kind of a new landscape.
I love it. I love it. Co-writer Paul Dini intended each of those flashbacks that you're talking about into Batman's love life to have a tendency to make things worse. Things get worse when you hope they'll get better. Bruce's relationship with Andrea at first shows promise and turns into turmoil. And at first, Bruce and Andrea are set for marriage. And then Bruce has given an abrupt farewell of her cutting off the relationship. And then this solidifies his becoming Batman, of being able to leave that behind, Dustin. I think you're right. A lot of these movies enter, whether it be Kim Basinger or some amazingly beautiful woman comes in. It's like, this one's special. I think this one felt more organic in the plot. It felt like it broke his heart in a way that said, I'm not going to be on this path of life. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm big on this. It seemed incredibly plausible and shockingly well written stuff, I think. And I might be in a different camp from you guys. Maybe it's just because I didn't remember it as well. I ate this movie up when I was younger, but I like the Bruce Wayne stuff, and I love the flashbacks. I mean, this is Nolan Batman before Nolan ever got to it. It's time weaving, and I love it.
No, I love that you have that take, because I like, it's very rare for me to find other people who have seen this and have a nice conversation about it. And everybody I talk to, they're like, yeah, no, when I was younger, I wanted like the Batman, but like, and they're like the pace, like, again, the Bruce Wayne parts just feel like it downed it. But I love the fact that you had that interpretation, that you took it differently than Dustin or myself, that in fact you were like, yeah, that's the depth that you wanted.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't deterred by this when I was a kid. I guess Burton's darkness of the 92 Batman Returns and 89 Batman prepared me for this one. I think this movie is such a companion piece. They did everything I loved in Burton, and they carried so much of what he did. It's a little less gothic, a little more deco. I mean, they're definitely brothers and sisters. The music's very similar, and it's all, to me, this is what Batman will always be. Dustin talked earlier about the style of Batman. This is my comfort zone.
This is a great style. Yes.
It is. Mm-hmm. So the style is really winning me over. But beyond that, I do want to just compliment the writing. I mean, the Joker coming in late and getting an origin story on the Joker, like a backstory, we never get that. And I thought it was, sometimes I think Chad likes his supervillains to have no backstory. They're just some total mystery wild card. I thought that was a real fun twist, like a sub twist of like, oh, that gangster with the pointy nose there that night, that becomes the Joker. And when Sal goes to visit him, I like how everything's coming full circle. And he's like, what's an old timer with like you want with a two timer like me? It's like, and you don't even realize the amount of connection all this stuff has upon a first watch as a kid and stuff like that. So as an adult, I was sitting there going like, wow, there is some real meat here as an adult to appreciate.
Yeah, no, how they have it tightly, like the writing, as you said, I am 100% with you. Like the writing is so well, like every sentence, every line of dialogue has some sort of meaning. Like even to the part where Andrea is finishing up her date with Arthur Reeves. Like she's like, oh, I've got a killer day tomorrow. Like there's these little breadcrumbs that they drop. And like if you pay attention on your second viewing, you'll be like, oh, why didn't I pick that up before? Like, or why? Like that's just something so simple, so small. But yeah, even on repeat viewings, like even after the big reveal has been revealed, you can watch it a second time and find out and like see some little nods and like that.
Even if you see it coming, there's these rewarding moments. I think co-writer Michael Reeves said the scene is a pivotal moment in Bruce's tragic life as he denies himself the opportunity to live a normal life. He said when he puts on the mask for the first time, I love it when Alfred drops back and like loses his breath. He's like, my God, he's reacting in sheer terror of watching a man who he's raised from a child become this man who has a desire for vengeance and retaliation in the costume. And later he mentions you always towed that line, and I'm so glad that you didn't become all that you seek to destroy. And
Yeah,
you know, I
that's what he
mean,
was worried about.
Mhm.
exactly. And I love getting to see that in Alfred. This creation of Batman, this desire to do this will to do it. We always take that for granted. Or we see the boy with his parents shot down, fall into the Batcave, and then voila, there's Batman. In Nolan's case, we go climb the Himalayas and we get that side of it. But I mean, here,
Voila, there's Batman.
here, here in this one, I felt like there were some seriously emotional justifications for what would turn a man to doing this, and that transformation. I think is, despite the short runtime in this movie, I don't know that it's been done better for my money.
There is something here that this watch through made me feel about Batman that I don't think I had felt quite the same. It exists for sure, but I didn't feel quite the same. He is in the rain, animated in the rain at the grave, and he's saying out loud, like, I deny what makes me happy, like, tell me what to do, guide me somehow. And I think the thing that is universal across all these platforms is being Batman is hard.
Mhm.
This movie shows you maybe he doesn't want to be Batman. You might not get that so poignantly put in this little short animated graveyard scene, especially when, yeah, we've been shown the what ifs before, but this what if, going on a little date to the Gotham World's Fair, like you can see them,
I love
having
that scene, by
two
the way.
straws in an ice cream malt. You could. It all seems, once again, like what you said, Russell. Like, it's not the 40s, but it kind of seems like the 40s. Like, there's this kind of like, look how great that must feel for Bruce Wayne. You never see that. And so that is kind of like another unique part of this that I would not have ranked high on the reasons to love Mask of the Phantasm, but this most recent watch, I'm like, yeah, it's actually pretty neat.
Yeah, this is Robert Pattinson's favorite Batman movie. So this is one of the Batman's actual favorite Batman movie. I thought that was a fun piece of trivia there. So, and Kevin Conroy's personal favorite Batman film, both of his own work and in general. So that's two Batmans who claim it's their favorite. So, and according to Kevin Conroy, Andrea Beaumont was named after the voice director of Andrea Romano. So, some fun connections there. We have actually a really impressive cast of voice work here. Will, would you like to walk us through this? Some of these are regular people, like we've talked about. Kevin Conroy is such a great voice of Batman, but we also have some newcomers in here too.
Sure, absolutely. As you mentioned before, we have Andrea Beaumont, played by Dana Delany. This was her first, toe into the DC animated universe, simply because shortly after this, they brought her to be Lois Lane in the new Superman adventures, because they was so popular with the Batman, they wanted to do the same thing with Superman. And I was like, it's one of those things that goes inside your head and then outside after so much time has passed. Like when I'm watching the Superman adventures, I'm like, that Lois Lane, like, why do I know that Lois Lane? Just like her, the suave, just like the very tone of her voice. And then I was like, oh my goodness, that's my Andrea Beaumont. That's her. We also have Hart Bochner. He plays Arthur Reeves. This is a new character for the film. This is Councilman Reeves. He is currently on his latest crusade to try and bring the Batman to justice. He's spearheading the campaign to bring Batman, because he's under the impression that he is the one who's killing these mobsters. To that end, Hart Bochner, many people, at first I was like, that name does not sound familiar to me. But after looking it up after a while, I'm like, oh, that's right. He was in Die Hard, everybody's favorite Christmas movie. He was the Harry Ellis.
He's the jerk who's trying to negotiate. Like,
absolutely.
He's like,
And then for those of us who were in the 1984 variety, he was the love interest in Supergirl. That was the Blake's, the Slater. I forget her first name, but he was like the love interest in the Supergirl movie as well. He was the character Ethan.
I think he did True Romance too, which is a movie we covered as well.
Yes, I have my list of some of these things here that I tried to get, but some I know you guys, by all means, feel free to add in your own 2 cents. Salvatore Valestra, this is the main mobster. By the time we meet him in the movie, he is much older. Cigarettes have caught up to him. But for those of us who are big into the film buffs, he is also a Vigoda. That he premiered mostly, people would know him in Godfather Part 1. He did have a small cameo appearance in Godfather Part 2. He was Salvatore Tessio. I know there was a lot of names thrown at us in The Godfather. He is the individual who wants to set up the meeting with Michael to try and get him off, to try and get them truce. As I have in here, this is the part where Tessio is then found out, and he asks other members of the mob family, "Can't you get me off the hook for old time's sake?" And again, tell Michael it was only business. And that character, Abe Vigoda, does continue to voice that character in the many various iterations of The Godfather. They did have like a Godfather video game, and he would come back and do the voices for that same character. And then another one I have just here, obviously we have the Mark Hamill, we have the Kevin Conroy, but the Phantasm, Carl Beaumont, was Stacy Keach, also credited as Stacy Keach Jr. I do have a few things here. He was the voice of the Lorax in 1972. That was one of his earlier voice acting roles. And also I just put this one in here just because I recently watched it. I'm a big Mystery Science Theater fan. To that end, I like the Film Crew and Cinematic Titanic and all those. And they just did, they did a film called Icebreaker. That does feature Stacy Keach in there. It also has Bruce Campbell. As I said, it's not a great movie, but it's still a funny one to watch if you like that kind of stuff.
Bob Hastings is always kind of my Commissioner Gordon's voice in my head. Gary Oldman's a great Commissioner Gordon, but Bob Hastings is a regular from the TV show, but I always love him too.
This is what the Joker will always be to me. Closer to the pun-slinging, joke-making Cesar Romero. It's gotta be a little wacky, gotta be a little silly. And so this is something where you can animate the Joker more like a Looney Tune because of what Mark Hamill brings to the smallest parts of those dialogue decisions. So that's something that if we never had a chance to again, we got to at least give Mark Hamill the props for this performance, even though it's only half the movie, but it brought such a smile to my face, right? No Joker toxin needed. I'm just like, oh, there he is, my guy. And even the first frame of him is something like, I think he's like looking directly at the camera in a way, because it's point of view from whoever tracks him down. I think he says like, "Can it be?" Like he's kind of tongue in cheek interacting with the audience, which is just very fun. I'm with you too about our Commissioner Gordon. Like that particular, I think they managed to this is how I like him animated and drawn. With the glasses, mustache, and the kind of white swept hair. And I know that Bob Hastings did Gordon for the Sub-Zero, Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero as well. But it's just kind of it's all part of the comfort of it. But we've always got, and I say we've had him for 60 years. Our Detective Bullock he's always around, and he's always kind of late to the scene or looking real haggard or something like that. So he's different in everything, but at least we made sure to get our little nod. Okay, yeah, Detective Bullock is here too.
My son loves that character, Detective Bullock.
What?
He finds him so funny. There's been times where like his grumpy nature doesn't work out so well for him or whatever. Like he gets the top of his car ripped off or something like that, or the fire hydrant fills it up with water or something like that. If we go to a restaurant, like he wants to get a toothpick and like he'll put it in his mouth and goes, "I'm Detective Bullock. Have you seen the bats?" And like
that's great.
So he really likes this character. I'm surprised he's connected with such a grump. But
wow.
No, you bring up a good point with that too. And even in one of the flashbacks, we do see Detective Bullock before he's a detective. He looks like he's actually like a street cop or a beat cop. Like he's in like that first flashback. He's like, "Hey, Jonesy, up there." He's the one who spits the coffee on the windshield. I'm like, that was nice seeing that progress, seeing that development, and having that little nudge, because he does have that nice moment to shine during the Gotham City Police and him tracking him down to the construction site. Like that scene. We'll get to that later, I'm sure. But like I said, he does get some moments to shine there as well.
So What I was really surprised at was, I guess they were taken off guard. Impressed by the success of the first season of Batman the Animated Series, Warner Brothers put Burnett in to write a story for a full-length animated film. The original idea was to have Batman captured by all of his enemies in Arkham Asylum and face a kangaroo court where they were running the court, and they were basically putting him on trial for all the things that they did to the villains. Batman's a bad guy, we got to lock him up, kind of thing. And there is an episode of this. It's called The Trial. You can watch it. It's actually very good.
Very good, yes.
They felt like this was too much of a thinker, too brainy for the kids. It would stayed in the immoral range for too long with the bad guys in control. So they canned this, or like I said, it kind of got repackaged into just a single episode. Good one, though. Burnett cited that he wanted to do a love story with Bruce, as you guys have well discussed. So this was a component of what he wanted to do. So the creative team claimed that they didn't necessarily want to put Joker in right away. And co-writer Paul Dini had contradicted this, though, stating that the Joker's role was always part of the story from the beginning of the film's production. So this is interesting. This thing is written by 4 different people for a short movie. I was surprised that Alan Burnett, Paul Dini, Martin Pascoe, and Michael Reeves were all in there. But apparently Pascoe handled most of these flashback segments. Michael Reeves wrote the climax. Paul Dini states that he filled in holes here and there. It's interesting that something seemingly slapped together by so many people that was made for TV and that got turned into a movie with short terms. I'm surprised this turned out this well. We did another movie called Emperor's New Groove early on, and they were rushed. They had low budget. They kept making compromises. They weren't as happy with the product in the end. I think the movie turned out really well. But the thing I want to say about this is the marketing didn't get behind it, and it didn't really thrive in the box office either. So this is kind of becoming a reoccurring theme of when you don't take your time necessarily and market this thing for over a year. It just goes to show you this movie is not really a failure. It just didn't get the marketing put behind it. And I'm sad about that. I think this stands above. I've seen a lot of TV show movies where just like it's your TV shows cashing in, like the Paw Patrol movie. This one's just so many cuts above the rest. I'm surprised when you read the production of this that we didn't end up with a lesser product. It doesn't show that it had that rough road to production for me. I don't know. You said this isn't perfect for you, Will. Is it in the writing that you feel like there are flaws for you?
Not so much. When I say it's not perfect, it's kind of like one of the issues. We'll get to that into the superlatives. Honestly, I'm with you. I wish there was more to it. I wish we had more. I wish we had more time. I wish we had more time in Gotham. There's always been one criticize I have with superhero movies is like, why can't we have like a B-list character or C-list character who just shows up? Maybe they're robbing a bank and we get the exposition from like a news report that happens the day after, like Batman stopped the Condiment King after XYZ, and so like people can get some
King.
Yeah, no,
you don't want the Condiment King in here.
I know, but the idea is
Calendar
that, like,
Man is at it again.
Exactly. No, just have some. Like, I would love, because you brought up a good point. Like, we have this great movie, and about halfway, where like Joker shows up. Like, oh snap, that's right, he's in this too. Like, and it brings a lot of validity and a lot of like tethers from the show to the movie. It gives it more of those legs to stand on. And it's interesting you brought up like the made for TV movies and movies that were adapted from TV shows, because I created a little list here of ones that like stand out to me specifically, and a lot of them do happen to be more 80s, early 90s, because if you think about it, the Jetsons movie was a Hanna-Barbera, and the quality in animation was like at least double than what we had in the show. Same thing with the G.I. Joe movie as well, the Transformers 1986 movies. Like the animation quality is like doubled. The Care Bears movies.
The quality of the Transformers movie was not doubled. I'll tell you that much.
All right, I'll give you that one. Oh, fair enough. But when you look at the show and you look at the movie, you see the extra shading, you see the extra details.
No, that's
see
fair.
The extra...
It's an animation festival in that.
Correct. One. Yes, and Batman: Mask of the Phantasm is with that, in that echelon of like, it's the graphics, it's the visual clarity that make this a movie, that makes this something like a cinematic feel that you're only going to get like in a movie. But as I said, like when I say it's not perfect, it's, for me, it's not perfect because I want more of it. Like I want more time in this story.
The role of Brian Fry today is being played by Will Gordich.
It's not as if what we didn't get was something I was craving, and it's not as if I was left like really, really wanting. I found that this movie resolves in a fun way in many different ways. It's hard to call it cinematography, but in certain things that you're left with as this movie ends did not leave me saying like, I should have had more. It's more just of, we had Batman movie 89, Batman movie 92, Batman animated series 92, 93, and then this is 93. What we're learning is that just people just love Batman, can't get enough, and that's always going to be true. Well, at least I hope so, because you get a chance to retell it somehow different. Now you're doing this animated series, and that's the fun thing about animation, is that now you can really have Batman doing backflips and flipping over a table and crushing someone or jumping out of a window, and it allows for the feats of the amazing to be just so well shown to you, or the Phantasm being in mist form, things not being able to hit the Phantasm creature or appearing, disappearing, that kind of thing. All of this, or even Joker's slapstickiness, knocking someone out with a baloney. Like this is all stuff that's like the medium just shows us like we want this, and it could go backwards, which is if you loved this movie or if you loved this TV show, go down to your local store and pick up a comic. And you might love that too. The very first app that like I got excited for on the first generation iPad was a comic book app that allowed you to zoom in on each individual panel. I'm like, I'm living in the future. Look at how fantastic this is. The detail on these paintings. And so this is just another example of, oh, wow, we get given something else. And this story is going to delve into backstory. And even though 30 years later, we've kind of had enough backstory now, but at the time it's going, oh, this is pretty neat. And I think there's a lot of things that if you're a fan of anything, stab in the dark, the first two things that came into my mind right now, Pacific Rim for some reason, and Power Rangers is a time, is that if you like Power Rangers, or if you're a fan of Bandai, then you might enjoy the how did the group grow up and like come together, right? And then if someone 30 years later changes it and retells it, you might go back and watch it. Then I'm looking at Pacific Rim, where they did a very poor job of setting up the prologue or how we got to where we are. It was rushed. The successful Pacific Rim movie, which was the first one, really seemed like the culmination of a series. They missed out on the stuff that got you there. So this movie gives you the stuff that got us there. And if they retell it again, and they've done it 5 times, we're going to tune in again. So it's, people can't get enough of this guy.
Yeah, the parallels to Orson Welles, because it's set in the 40s, kind of, or ambiguously set in the 40s, the Orson Welles Citizen Kane comes to my mind as an influence through this one. It certainly doesn't overstay its welcome as much as Citizen Kane does for me. I feel like that movie does begin to drag for me when I watch Citizen Kane, as blasphemous as that may sound. But early in production, Warner Brothers decided to release the Phantasm theatrically rather than straight to video. And I just, like you said, Will, there's quality moves in this that don't show. When you see the Mr. Freeze movie, it does look like it was made for TV.
Agreed.
The title sequence in the beginning, there are moments of this, like you said, that are more ambitious than what you get in the show. And like you said, you do get an upgrade. So I'm glad you pointed that out. And that's one of the reasons why probably it does seem so special. Even as a kid, when I was just like, oh, Mask of the Phantasm's on TV. This is a special thing. Like, we didn't own a lot of movies growing up. So the fact that it was on TV and I could see this thing that I saw from the rental store once. My parents also did not re-rent movies at all. Like, my mom was like, you've seen it. And I'm like, so like I said, it was like a real bonus for me. And that specialness, like you're talking about, it wasn't just like, oh, this is the Clayface episode, I like that one. This one partially but like you said, Dustin, too, the Phantasm is a great villain. Like, it's a really good villain, and we only get one look at the Phantasm. part of me wanted it to come into the series. And the other thing that kills me is this isn't just with this movie. I got to the end of this, 3-4 seasons. They kind of bring it back with some extra episodes, like with the Adventures of Superman, like kind of alternating. It's they changed the animation style a little bit. Still great stuff though. The writing's still excellent. I'm so frustrated they didn't keep cranking this out. Like, why did Kevin Conroy not get to continue being Batman and Mark Hamill not continue to be the Joker? I mean, this is so frustrating when you look at the history of the directors there, Eric Radomski and Bruce Timm. They continue to work in this DC universe here. I mean, Radomski goes from this to doing other superhero things like the Ultimate Spider-Man, Avengers Assemble, Hulk, the Agents of Smash, Guardians of the Galaxy. He's so into this world. And, similarly, Bruce Timm really stays in this DC universe stuff. He does the new Batman Adventures, which is what I was talking about, where it kind of felt like Batman the Animated Series. Then there's the Batman Beyond, which is a longer, that's a 4-year run. That's like Batman in the future, where another guy takes up the mantle. Then you got Justice League, which you mentioned, Dustin, Justice League Unlimited, and then a Green Lantern animated series, and Batman Cape Crusader. Bruce Timm is like dedicated his career to this DC animated universe, and it's all excellent. And if he got to stay in that world so much, how could he not produce and get one of these other projects going? But still, why did we have to lose the Batman animated series when we did? I'm always frustrated by that.
I mean, I don't have an answer, and we did have 4 years with 4 total products here from 89 to 93. There's a chance Warner Brothers says too much too fast, maybe. If I remember right, Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero is 98, so 5 years after this.
Mm-hmm.
Was there another one in between? I don't think so.
They did that new Adventures of Batman, like that I was telling you, like Batman and Robin kind of thing, where it's like it feels like another season.
Wasn't there another another animated movie? It was like something with the was a Batwoman, like the mystery of Batwoman. I think would have been one of the last few DC animated of that genre. I remember them telling me like there was like I'll have to look it up later, but there were 3. There was Mask of the Phantasm, Sub-Zero, and then like this last one that I think had very little promotion. It was like the mystery of Batwoman or something like that. It was a new Batwoman who showed up on the scene.
Well, I think one of the things we get, and Russell, the first thing I think about here is the way that we talked about the movie Hook is that Spielberg doesn't love his own movie, and it wasn't a box office smash, wasn't a flop.
Yeah, his library sets a very high bar, though, in fairness.
But it wasn't a smash. And that's where when we go, well, this wasn't a smash. And in the end, we get, home sales change it. But when you say like you're frustrated, I think what we're running into is the decision for somebody in a room, the producer, somebody that's got a wallet that needs to be opened for something to happen. They likely know that whether it's Batman The New Adventures or Batman Beyond or any of these other things, Lego Batman, huge, massive success. But they have to look at it and say, we don't want to put out 10 things that our loyal fans will love. We want to put something out that everyone will love and that we can quadruple our budget. So that is where I'm going. Did Valentine's Day deserve to be made? No.
You really hate that movie.
But it did its job, didn't it? Is it made twice what? I hate that movie. But it did its job. And I think that this as much as we are waxing poetic about how we like this movie, it didn't do its job. It didn't make enough money.
No.
And that's why they shied away from it. And it's because they didn't put half their budget into marketing or double their budget to allow for the marketing to go into it. Imagine the fervor of seeing Batman animated feature-length film for the first time. I'd be excited. I'd be so like hyped seeing that trailer before a 1991 movie. Like, oh, there's a Batman movie coming. And who is this Phantasm? We never got it. So I think it just comes down to, and I don't know if it always comes down to it from my point of view, but movie executives aren't always just giving us the art that we want. Sometimes it's about the business that they run.
You're probably right. I know 95's Batman Forever, and Burton wanted to make a third movie. He came in ready to make another one with ideas. He had hopes for the Riddler, and they kind of kept pushing him aside, pushing him aside, pushing him aside. That's great, Tim, whatever. And then like he's like, it was like he's really building up to do this again. And at some point they're just like, you're not doing this next movie, Tim. And he was crushed. Like he was like, what? Why? And the sad fact of the matter was, I guess there was a parental reaction at this point where Batman's too dark. The cultural shifts had like kicked in. TV shows in the 80s were really violent. Thundercats, He-Man, G.I. Joe, guns, violence, something happened with Blue's Clues, Dora the Explorer and stuff like that, where there was no action, no violence to be had later on as we go on here. And you're making me, this is my conspiracy. Joel Schumacher got control of the Batman series to sell toys. That's a fact. They wanted to sell more toys, and they thought that the Danny DeVito Penguin was too scary and that this is too far. This isn't for kids anymore. I would disagree. Kids like to be scared. Jim Henson said they just want to know it's going to be okay. They like to be scared. It's okay to go on this adventure. It's part of growing up to face your fears and to take them on that good adventure. Jim Henson's long gone at this point, though, and somebody different is driving the boat for what kids want. And I think you're right. Making colorful, redesigned characters and selling them the same characters over and over again that look different 10 times. Unfortunately, it's what led to that Transformers movie that we watched last year that made me sad. We have to sell more toys. And anytime that's your motivation going into the movie, I think that's a bad starting point. So maybe that's what led to the end of this one.
It's interesting you bring up Batman Returns and the whole feedback, because a lot of that has to do, like, a lot of it was McDonald's as well. McDonald's was selling these toys in their Happy Meals, and like, see the movie where you see Danny DeVito hit on like women and grope them and like secrete bile and ooze out of his mouth. I'm like, yeah, well, like it definitely it definitely tilted more towards the Tim Burton than the Warner Brothers side, and a lot of that, like Batman Returns was my first Batman movie. Like, I love Batman Returns. It's
really good.
It has a staple. I do feel it's underappreciated in its time, and it's only gotten better in hindsight. But yeah, a lot of that was like McDonald's was like furious that they were like promoting these Happy Meal toys for like these subjectively gross, like
Catwoman's
darker characters.
Sexy too,
Yeah, I mean, and what kind of like you've seen the movie, now ask the questions to your parents at McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see this McDonald's executive pounding his fists on the table. This Catwoman is too sexy. How is Mayor McCheese going to talk to such a sexy Catwoman? I remember specifically, I had a McDonald's mug made of glass with the Jim Carrey Riddler on it.
I did too. The question mark was the handle.
The question mark was the handle. Yeah, it was cool glass. I bet it cost $4. I was like, oh man, this is neat.
Jim Carrey saves that movie from becoming what even got worse, the next movie. So
Batman and Robin was next, right?
Correct.
Yeah. But yeah,
and that was to sell more toys.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna go see these. The people that groaned about Ben Affleck, they went and saw the movie.
He was better than I. By the way, I'll defend you, Will. Like,
thank you.
Like he got trashed. Batfleck, or like this is a terrible idea. Technically, people said that to Michael Keaton when he was going to be Batman. They're like, Mr. Mom's going to be Batman? Well, give it a shot. Before Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man, he was in Wonder Boys, and no one saw it coming. And they're actors. Sometimes they have more range to go there than you would think.
And you can find like newscaster interviews of people in '89. They're like, I don't think Michael Keaton, like a 5 foot something or other, being Batman. I don't see it, and it's so funny just looking at that. And you saw the same thing with Heath Ledger as the Joker. Like Heath Ledger as the Joker, I don't like. Hold on there.
Something I really like about the way that the animated series does the male figure and the female figure is that yes, Superman and Batman have incredibly broad shoulders and big chests. So does every other man in the world. and all the default shape is comic book shape. So the Joker's broad too, even though he's not meant to be physically on par with some of these other heroes. Like that's something about this style. Again, I talked about loving the style of the Tim Burton Batman. I love the style of this cartoon, and the style of Batman Beyond was not the same. It was new and it was different. And I was
Really
14
different.
years old. I'm like, I could dig this, but it's just going back in retrospect, it's not the same. And there's a lot that the style choice will either add to or take away from. And this style of this movie really adds to just what we love about it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, Will, there's computer animation
Yes,
that they were able to insert into here.
absolutely.
I feel like when I watch the Sub-Zero movie, I'm very painfully aware of the things that they tried to computer animate, it's like early computer CGI
Mhm.
moment. I don't think that pain is here. And again, probably increased budget had everything to do with that.
100%, I agree with you. It's great that you brought that up. Like the opening cityscape was like the first time they introduced CGI into the Batman animated series universe, and that goes back to that idea of like the cinema, like it has this cinematic feel to it. Like the opening credits crawl with that font, and you just hear that chorus playing, and just like the cityscape, it's just like you know that you're in for something special. Like you know that this is more than just the Danny Elfman intro to the Batman, the animated show. You're into something super special. Like you're up at that next level.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the style we talked about also with this, I think it goes to the wardrobe too. Again, it's ambiguously kind of set in the 40s, and that comes through with like these glamorous dresses the women are wearing, Batman suits, nice and simple. Like we're at the precipice of superhero outfits are about to come really stupid looking here in a few more years after this, and it's nice to see this last little zone where they kept it nice and pretty simple. This is a good bat suit, and the Phantasm is awesome. They kind of had this notion of wanting to craft it after the Ghost of Christmas yet to come or the Christmas future, and that Grim Reaper style, like you mentioned, you put it in the Darth Vader realm. I mean, it really is that good. Like it's blank, it's simple, it strikes fear. It comes with the smoke and stuff like that. I mean, the voice alteration, that was one of the things Grant, when he was watching this, was his mind was blown. Like when Andrea comes out, as an adult, I kind of did. I was like, the thought was in my head, is like, that could be Andrea. But like the fact that had a voice modulator on them, he goes, the voice? Like I watched him have his, 4-year-old mind blown that that was Andrea inside that suit the whole time. And it had occurred to me that it could happen as an adult, but on the other hand, I was sitting there going like, the payoff's there. It made him extremely happy, and it blew his mind. And so the voice changed with that. It's really good. The Phantasm is really good. And as you mentioned, Will, we see that Andrea can fight. Like she has this Goldfinger illusion, like where like she's rolling in the grass doing martial arts with Bruce earlier on, and she can hold her own. And of course, after years of training and being bent on revenge, she's only going to make her better. So that reveal is really good.
Sorry. It's interesting you bring up like her physical prowess, because at the same time she's a character who knows her limits. Like she doesn't go in a fist fight with these thugs. She uses deception. She uses these methods of deceit. She uses the smoke. She uses the fear. She uses like any kind of psychological manner to give her the edge, because when we look at it in one of the flashbacks, like these are like large mobsters, and one of them literally Chucky Saul, I think his character, like just literally like restrains her and holds her, like just like, nope, you're like, timeout, kid. But like, and we see it when she comes back as the Phantasm. She uses her deceit. She uses these deceptions. She uses like the fear, like whenever they're firing bullets at her, like the bullets don't seem to do anything. Whenever he throws the broken piece of the shovel, like with the sharp point towards her, like she lifts up and the smoke just surrounds her and it disappears. Like, and she uses that fear, and he falls into an empty plot in the cemetery. And well, that's easy. We just push him in. Case closed. Done. And like just the way she takes out the, she has the scythe, but she doesn't, like she uses it, but she's not using it. We don't see the kill. Obviously, whenever in the first 10 minutes, the other gangster,
drives himself off.
Correct. Yeah, and I said I like. And I said I think it's interesting that I said she knows her limitations, and I said she's using the same techniques that she sees Batman, or she acknowledges perhaps Batman has done, and she's like, I can do like this is something I could do, and so I really wish we had. When I say I wish we had more, I wish I had. I want to see the movie where she becomes the Phantasm. Like I want to see like that 15, 20-minute extra content where it's like the day after her dad is dead. Like when does she like when does that happen to her? Like when does she make that connection? Like this is my time. I just
When do
looked at the
you
pit.
put that in though? Like, because the action's pretty high. When they reveal her face, it's pretty high tense. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you'd have to wait till like she's on the boat almost, like
That is
leaving.
true.
Like, when do you fit it in?
Yeah, no, I agree. I said that's why it's not a like even like if I tried to make it perfect in my head, it wouldn't. Like I said, it has that nice balance. I said if it goes too much on one side, it might teeter. Like if we had maybe one more flashback, it might have gone a little bit movie too much, or if we had one little flashback, it could have been like one little mess.
You want some episodes off of this, then it sounds like.
Yeah, I would love like a companion piece, a coda. If they ever interpreted this into a graphic novel, like an official graphic novel, I would think of like I'm thinking like The Long Halloween. I'm thinking like a multi-piece element, just because I love the Phantasm character. Like that was that femme fatale coming off of Batman Returns. I've seen Michelle Pfeiffer play this sexy villainess, and here we have
sexy.
yeah, too sexy. And so we have the Phantasm, yet another style, a different type of one who doesn't even use her sexuality, but instead masks it entirely.
There's something about this. Like, where do you put it, or where does it come from, or where do you want it? I want it in the animated series. I want the backstory there. I want more of the backstory there. I want more of the Phantasm in this movie. But I think the maybe an unsung hero of how well the Nolan Batmans did is the backdrop of the League of Shadows really helps you put everything together from before, quote unquote, before. Who trained under where? How could anybody be at the same level as this other person? And it's because there is a common denominator. I think what's interesting about the Phantasm is that the only thing we know about Andrea's training is I think she says like, oh yeah, Mrs. Hot Dottie's battle training for girls, or what?
Self-defense class for girls.
There
Yes.
we go. Thank you. Self-defense class for girls. Yeah, well, what if, an hour in, we see that, like, Mrs. Hot Dottie or whatever is a front for some other criminal thing, or in the Mediterranean. Oh, I was there for 10 years, or whatever it is where there's another interaction with, I don't know, some red-haired chick that loves plants. I'm not sure what it is, but maybe it could be brief. We don't get a single bit of it. Could that improve it? I think so. Could we spend too much time on it? Probably. But
Because this has come from the TV world, all three of us are sitting here ruminating on wanting more Batman the animated series.
we just want more Batman.
We just keep coming back to it. We just want more of it because it was done so well, and they took it away before it never faded away.
I'm gonna watch some Justice League tonight. I promise you.
Well, sit tight. I'll give you a good recommendation if you're into the Phantasm.
For sure.
Musically, this is right on par and cut from the same cloth. This is Shirley Walker doing the composition for the animated series. Love it. It is part of that. We keep talking about liking the tone in this movie and borrowing from Tim Burton. Well, this is borrowing from Danny Elfman, and it's cut from the same quilt. I love it. And another thing here at the end of the movie, there's a song called I Never Even Told You. And it's a singing performance by Tia Carrera. And she is the woman from Wayne's World. Swing!
Swing!
Yeah.
100%. Like when I found that out as an adult.
Really well.
Yeah. It was... Yeah, no, as I that elevates Wayne's World for me, because this movie had such an impact, and like, oh, if they thought that was a great movie, or if they thought that was a great song, then obviously Tia Carrera is a great actress.
She will be mine. Oh, she will be mine.
Brilliant.
All right. What do you say we hand out some awards, you guys?
I'm ready.
MVP of Batman, The Mask of the Phantasm here. Will.
I'm going with Mark Hamill. His Joker, like, he brings the scenes, he brings the energy. They're really, I said, like when you're halfway through the movie and you're enjoying it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, the Joker's in this too. I have so much more goodness to look forward to. Like, there's a lot of fun here.
Great. Love it. Dustin, how about you? MVP.
Come on, it's Mark Hamill. It's the Joker. This movie is not about the Joker, but that he's in it and that he's fun in it. It's his inclusion. It's always stellar. Fun tie back to his backstory, and presents. I mean, him taking over the Gotham World's Fair makes just so much sense in the Batman world that we know. And he's got his little mechanical girlfriend or whatever.
Oh, the mechanical robot girlfriend
Hazel.
from the amusement park. That was so good. I loved her. That was great. Lousy
Ain't
cook,
it just
though.
the way you get in the mood and someone drops in?
And company goes up. Yep. You won't hear a giggle out of me.
I went in a similar direction here, but I'm going to go ahead and be different and just say Alan Burnett, Martin Pascoe, Michael Reeves, and Paul Dini, the guys who wrote this, it's just good writing. You know,
Agreed.
I think their movies, there's several Batman movies, live action with triple the budgets that never wrote something so well. So really good writing. Best supporting. You guys already brought Mark Hamill out for this one. So what are you going to do here, Will?
I went with Dana Delany just because her Andrea Belmont, she's able to keep up with her quick wit. Like the first scene you see her in the cemetery where she's almost not passive aggressive, but she's like, yeah, I know you're Bruce Wayne, but I don't care. Like that element that she brings, because when we first meet the other girls at that point, like before the flashback, they're all like these like hoity-toity like women who don't seem to have much depth to them.
No.
And even as Arthur Reeves brings it up, he's like, it's like you pick these girls because you know you don't have a chance with them. And I'm like, brilliant. Just like that is so concise. And I said, whenever we meet Andrea and her whole attitude, that fiery redhead, that passion, she stole the cake. And I said, apparently Warner Brothers thought so too, that they brought her back to be Lois Lane.
Nice. Dustin, best supporting.
It is our Hart Bochner as Arthur Reeves. Arthur Reeves, a new character. Interesting on screen. You immediately know to dislike him. Not because of what side he's on, because of the portrayal through the voice acting. Being the side he's on, it makes sense, but I thought that was fun. And then he gets a chance to show off his chops during the later scene when he's hospitalized due to the Joker's
with the laugh toxin.
Yeah. That's strenuous to do, you know. Like so, I thought that was a pretty great performance from somebody where I had mentioned before, to love this movie, you need to know Batman a little bit. You don't have to know who Arthur Reeves is because he's brand new. So to make an impact in a movie like this matters.
My best supporting is going to be a regular from the series, Efrem Zimbalist.
Alfred.
Yes, Alfred. Efrem Zimbalist Jr. He's a great Alfred. This series had a great Alfred. You got to have a great Alfred to have a good Batman, and he's really good.
He had some great lines in this one too. He was like, "I diapered your bottom. I very well ought to, sir."
Yeah, he's great. I mean, we've had a lot of good Alfreds over the years. Michael Caine's awesome. You got Michael Goo's great. I mean, but anyway, this is one of the other great Alfreds in there. So it's important to have a good Alfred. Don't take it for granted. It's a good role. So, Will, hidden gem.
See, this was a tough one. I have it down to hidden gems just because the first one is Batman versus the Gotham City Police. Like whenever the construction site happens, like even as a kid, you're on the edge of your seat, like, oh, what's going to happen? Is this something that, like, we know he's going to get away because he's Batman, but like we have that close call, and then it comes back to the whole Andreas scene, like, oh, I saw it all over the news. I'm like, there were no cameras, so how did she know? So like it adds more of those breadcrumbs. The other one is the ending, like the last 15 minutes with Andreas starting with Andrea standing outside the Joker's base, like in that flashback, and then to the final scene where Batman fires off his grappling and just soars into the sky. Like that final 15 minutes there's so much emotion, there's so much like passion, and you can tell that the people who made that scene, who wrote that scene, really, really wanted, like they had this clear goal in mind. At least that's how I saw it.
Dustin, hidden gem.
It's Alfred coming in with tea, turning around, because they're frolicking in the grass. And then later, the exact same thing happens. He comes in with tea. He just turns around again.
Oh,
It was like,
Yeah,
oh,
little running jokes are like that are great. I thought about, ooh, is this my chance to kind of dive into some Batman trivia? But I thought, like, hey, this was just fun and a delight to see on screen. Like, that's funny. Good job.
I I mentioned earlier with Bob Hastings being one of my favorite Commissioner Gordons earlier, so I kind of gave him his flowers earlier. But the design of this World of the Future park before and after the change of that over time, I love it. There is a 1960 World Fair park in New York in Flushing Meadows, and old pictures of it are grand, and then in its ruined state, that undoubtedly influenced this, and it does a place of great joy and enthusiasm and optimism towards the future turned into a post-apocalyptic, disillusioned, dystopian kind of thing. And what a wonderful before and after that is. So
Yeah.
I really
It
like
was
that.
hard not to choose him looking at the automobile and thinking of the future for the Batmobile with that sort of deco style.
yeah, those nods. That was a really
Mhm.
nice touch.
Yeah.
Recast. Right. Dustin, if you had to recast somebody and put Celestia in their place, who would it be?
Yeah. So I liked Dana Delany as our Andrea Beaumont, but this movie has a time jump a little bit, and in order to make that work, Batman is just an age. These people are of an age.
Mhm.
So I thought it'd be kind of neat if, since this is later on, she has returned back. Uh, you could look at it as like 18 coming back at 28. You could come look at it as like 26 coming back at 36. The Batman's still gonna be doing his Batman thing. So I thought it'd be kind of neat if that character was not in the like 32 or less column, but instead like somebody with a little bit of age behind her. So I was thinking like Lucy Lawless would make sense.
But she's
Now,
tough enough to do it, that's for sure.
at the
Mhm.
time, she would have been in that range I'm describing, but her career post Xena, I think she's got a voice with some gravitas. So I like that idea.
The lovely Lucy Lawless. All right. I don't think there's anything wrong with Hart Bochner's performance here. He's really good. I have to play the game though. And because he's not a regular character, I wasn't going to recast anybody from the regular series because we've come to like all these characters so much. So a new face is a much easier recast. I'm putting Jeremy Piven in this role.
Yeah, yeah, that works.
He can do slimy well, and I'd
Listen,
like to see him doing the cowering scenes of like when he's being intimidated. So
I'd like to have him illustrated like Jeremy Piven too.
sure. Will, we're
All
coming
right.
back to you. If you had to
Okay,
recast somebody
that's
and put
fair.
somebody
No,
in their place, who would it be?
no, that's fair. I like the idea of approaching new characters. So I would choose any of the mobsters. I would like to have, as weird as it sounds, I would love to hear John Ratzenberger as one of the mobsters, perhaps Chucky Saul. For those, he is Ham in Toy Story. In Cheers, he was the post officer, who was the postal worker. I think his voice has a nice kind of sly funness that I think would make a good mobster voice. And I like the off ones, like you don't really hear it, but I think I could hear him as more of like just like a little jovial mobster. I know it's not a big reference, but as I said, I've been into his voice recently. Plus, I just watched Toy Story not too long ago.
Nice. We love it. Thanks for playing that. It's hard to do.
Yeah,
So,
that's a tough one.
best shot, not necessarily shot with a real camera, but they do make a lot of beautifully composed frames and such here. Will, what's your best shot?
Yeah, mine was again the Gotham City skyline opening credits, only paired with the first reveal of the Phantasm when he comes out of the shadows and you just see like the gray coming out of the black. But as I said, best shot I would have to say for sure is the Gotham City skyline with the opening credits. Again, it brings us something new. The visuals, the CGI. Again, it's setting up the stage that you're ready, that you're going to be something. You're going to see something you haven't seen before.
Awesome. Dustin, best shot.
The World's Fair is blowing up, and the unmasked Phantasm has the Joker in her grip, and he's on his knees, bent over backwards, laughing
Yeah.
because we're all going up, baby. And then, through some mystery, the smoke comes around and then dissipates, and they're gone. meant to coincide with the explosion, I have to believe, so that there is like what happened. Because what we have is through animation, like, well, nobody knows what happened. And then we get shown what happens later. But just that scene with Joker maniacally laughing, like, yes, I did it. We're all ending here. This is what I wanted. I thought that was great.
Yeah, the music
stole
hits that
mine.
nice crescendo, and no, I agree. I see that.
That is 100% mine, and that is again so
Oh,
Joker,
really?
like laughing. Yeah, it's a really good one. So I think Will mentioned it earlier too. The other one that comes to my mind is when we first meet the Phantasm, but I'm going to say not the first time in the parking garage, in the graveyard. The setting in the graveyard, the smoke coming up, the whole thing's very ominous and creepy and stuff like that. So that second introduction where we get a better look at the Phantasm might be one of my lasting memories. One of the few things I did remember 30 years later coming back into it.
Very Christmas Carol. I mean, if they were, I said the idea was to get that whole Ghost of Christmas Past in that cemetery, they nailed it.
Best scene, Will.
Best scene. I'm going to say based on the acting and based on the writing. This was mentioned earlier. This is the scene where Bruce is at his parents' grave. This is a flashback where he's asking for their permission for let things be different. He didn't count on being happy. This flood of emotions that he's literally confessing to this tombstone, like this, and the way it's framed. And like the camera angle is looking up at the tombstone, like you're a kid looking up at your parents for approval, like you're looking for permission. But like as he's begging, like, please, I need things to be different. Like I didn't count on being happy. Like that whole scene, and then her showing up, like maybe they sent me. Like I really enjoyed that scene every time.
It's a good one. Dustin, best scene.
I mentioned that I liked this Arthur Reeves character, and I think it is when he's hospitalized and kind of being interrogated by Batman. Interrogated might not be the right word. Questioned by Batman when he's hysterical, and it's interesting to see on screen. It is extremely frightening. There's a certain thing. I don't know what age you start to think that scarier than death is losing your mind, and looking at a scene where you are hysterical to the point where like you can't have control over the functions of your body, like that's a scary thing. And then you think about like, how do we make Mask of the Phantasm dark, like the Nolan dark? Is that, oh, Batman shows up to talk to him in this state. That's messed up, Batman. But he had to. So I thought, and the performances there in that scene were kind of over the top in the right way. So I thought it was an interesting scene, and I liked it.
Will mentioned this in his best shot. I love the blowing up of the world of the future park. This is a great climax. It pays off at the end in a big way. It's pretty. It's so incredibly Joker. It's so incredibly Batman. Like, you know, it's why these two always go back and forth again. And it's every bit as rewarding as the end of The Dark Knight when Heath Ledger's still, swinging there up by his feet, and he's like, "We're gonna keep doing this forever," kind of thing. And then this is in essence, we have one person who wants to kill the Joker, and the other guy who chooses not to kill. This is so that these are really important themes to Batman, and I love it. So, Batman wants to get him out of there, and Joker's sitting there laughing of like, "I'm gonna pull you down into my level," and it's so great. I love it. Best wardrobe or makeup moment?
Phantasm, hands down.
It's hard not to pick, right?
Yeah, right.
Dustin, are you going to go with this direction?
Detective Bullock just cannot tighten his tie.
No, he can't.
It's got to. I'm going unbuttoned right now, and he's got to have his tie like way down there, and
just shows how frustrated he is.
Sweat through his hat and jacket too. Like he's always. It's exactly what we want out of him.
There's an episode where we see Detective Bullock's apartment, because he's being stalked by somebody, and he comes to Batman, actually, even though he doesn't like him most of the time, for help. And we see what a slob he is at home. So it does not disappoint either. So he's a slob on duty and he's a slob off duty. So you're right. But I got to go with you, Will. Phantasm. It went in 20 different versions of it before they conceived of this version, and they got it right. The cape was a good ad. Mm-hmm. The hook hand came later. Great addition of that. So I love the Phantasm and the smoke too, and the voice modulation, everything.
I enjoy like how enigmatic the smoke is. Like 1 minute it can like just Yeah, like you don't know the rule. Like, what are the rules? Like,
You don't need
what are
them.
they?
Yeah, it's animated, so you
Yeah,
can mess around with it. Yeah.
absolutely. And like, you want to add a little bit of paranormal to it if you want, and you have that capacity. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the look of Andrea when she pulls the mask and shoulder pads off. She still looks pretty tough
Hmm.
in the all black, even though she's got no mask on at that point. So it still delivers even as it unfolds there. So change one thing. We're gonna make you do it, Will.
Yeah, no. I mentioned a few. I bled breadcrumbs. I wish there were some maybe more scenes. Like this is my inner kid wishing there was it was
Mhm.
longer, more scenes. A part of me wishes that maybe we had maybe another rogue gallery villain in just a random shot. Maybe we see like an early incarnation of the Riddler when in a flashback when Batman's still trying to get it down. Or it doesn't have to be somebody as mainstay as the Riddler, as I talked about. We said Calendar Man, Condiment King. Just some weird B-list, C-list villain to show that like there's more villains out there, like just to give some attention to some of these guys that we don't get. Like I would be again, my things I would change are very minuscule and they're only um, satisfying my inner child.
All right, Dustin, change one thing.
Going through the names of those other of the rogues gallery just put me like my train of thought to some of the real stinkers in Batman's history.
Eggman.
They know they're bad too, so they've leaned into it over the years.
I know. All right, mine is pretty controversial. I would say, ditch the origin story, weave that into the cartoon series. We can do it. We did it with X-Files. We did it with Twin Peaks. We do it all the time. And as we didn't have enough seasons of that series, so have these 74 minutes. That's all we get. Be about Batman, Beaumont, Phantasm, and the Joker. That's the change. Not a change. I like say like this is what we must do. Like this is what I want to do. If I'm changing something, it's put all of that in the animated series and just give me the feature.
So you're saying like make it dependent on the show? Because I'm thinking when you say that, I'm thinking like Firefly, Serenity, because Firefly was the movie Firefly or the show Firefly, and Serenity. Serenity was made for the fans, and people who saw the show loved the movie, but people who went into the movie not seeing the show, they didn't have that background, they didn't have that context for those characters, and so because of that, a lot of people felt that Firefly or the Serenity movie kind of flopped because it didn't have the context there.
Well, we already know, like, what we want isn't what the studio wants. What we want, all the three of us, we want more content, and we want the focus on the things that worked.
Okay.
Right. So, like, I'm going towards like what would I like? The great line from Community was, "How do you rank like how good a show is 6 seasons in a movie?"
Yeah.
Well, you don't see the movie, you don't watch the show. Why would
Correct.
you watch the X-Files movie if you don't know anything was going on? Fire Walk with Me, you would not get a single thing. There's just a whole bunch of stuff where, like, Sex and the City movie, I suppose, like, you might see, but, like, there's if it's based on some other media like that, I think it could just tie in just great. But once again, I'm not saying this is what I would prefer to do. This is just
Mm-hmm.
All right. My change one thing, and Grant brought this up, and I didn't have a good answer for it. After he found out that Andrea was the Phantasm, we did watch it a second time later with great enthusiasm for him, and he looked up to me and goes, "How come the bullets don't hurt her?"
It's a good question.
Because we know, like you said, ambiguously, we thought it was a supernatural presence in the beginning, potentially. She runs very fast too.
Yes, like on the rooftops when you see those legs moving back and forth, like super fast. Yeah, no, I remember that.
These are the things that animation allows you to do that Dustin said is wonderful. I would like some kind of body armor component of it just to be dropped off when she goes head to head with the Joker. Something that can just indicate like I've got Kevlar or something on, just to say I was getting shot, and or you're not Neo, you can't dodge bullets, so just something there. It looked like she got hit, so how did she not? Is the question. That's a really nitpicky thing.
No, but I mean, as a kid, you always ask those. Again, I asked these like, how is like, what makes this character like that's so like not like Batman just doesn't stand there. At least Batman moves and dodges. This guy's just
Right.
standing there and just like letting it happen.
Or you might have Solomon Grundy or Killer Croc like absorb 12 to 15 of them because they're massive and it's going to hurt, but like they'll animate it. But we don't exactly know why this character, the Phantasm, can eat some bullets.
Yeah, we don't. All right, best quote. There are actually some pretty good ones in here. Will.
To that end, is it all right if I apply two?
Sure.
Okay. First one is at the very end. It is an Alfred quote. He says, "Vengeance blackens the soul, Bruce." And I always feared that you would become that which you fought against. You walk the edge of that abyss every night, but you haven't fallen in, and I thank heaven for that. And then he continues like, "But Andrea fell into that pit years ago, and no one, not even you, could have pulled her back." I find that was like that kind of like is like a nice staple of their relationship. Leave it to somebody else to tell them what their relationship was all about. But the idea is, again, it comes back to like they're the two sides of the same coin. And the other one is a Joker, because Joker's got so many great one-liners. This is the one where he has already taken out Sal Valestra, and he's on the little remote camera, and he looks at the Phantasm, and he's like, "Whoops, looks like the joke's on me. Like, you're not Batman after all. Like looks like there's a new face in Gotham, and soon his name will be all over town, to say nothing of his legs and feet and spleen and head." So that one that always cracks me up.
All right, Dustin, best quote.
Gotta hand it to you. Nice scheme. Costume's a bit theatrical, but who am I to talk?
That is good. So I like that long soliloquy that Batman or Bruce Wayne says at the grave, where he says, "It doesn't mean I don't care anymore. I don't want to let you down, honest, but it doesn't hurt so bad anymore. You can understand that, can't you? Look, I can give money to the city. They can hire more cops. Let somebody else take the risk. It's just different now. Please, I need it to be different now. I know I made a promise, but I just didn't see us coming. I didn't count on being happy. Can you tell me it's okay?" And then Andrea walks in, perfect timing. She goes, "Maybe they already have. Maybe they sent me." And I'm just like, that's good.
Good stuff.
That's good stuff. And the other one that I like, because I got to give a Joker quote in there with you guys. "So what's an old timer like you want with a two-timer like me?"
I will like one of my favorite like audio quips is when he's with Sal Valestra, and he's like immediately after that Sal's like, "Business. I've got," and you hear these footsteps before you see the Joker literally run up in front of him. He's like, "Ooh, business." But just hearing the footsteps like running to him, I'm just imagining he's here scared for his life, and he sees the Joker running right up to him and is stopping right in front of him just to be like, "Ooh, business."
Yeah. By the way, kudos for a kid's show for putting in the oxygen tank for Sal. Grant's like, "What's wrong with him?" I was like, "Did you see him smoking all the time when he was younger? This is in the future." Like, he's like, "Smoking's really bad." I'm like, "Well, yeah. So good for you." So, all right, we've come full circle. Will, on a 5-star scale with half-star intervals, what would you rate Batman: Mask of the Phantasm?
4.5 out of 5, sir.
All right. High praise. Dustin, we're going to throw this one to you. 5-star scale, half-star intervals.
3.5. High 3.5 for me. Very enjoyable movie. Things that I've already described. If I started counting all of the ways that I would want this movie to be better, I couldn't attribute like a half star to each of them.
Okay.
But I was just looking to myself going like, this is fun, but I had a bias. I like Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero better than this.
Whoa!
And I knew that would be a surprise to you two.
Clutch the pearls.
That movie for me, I really, really like. And so I was kind of doing like some comparison, and it was still an enjoyable experience, and I still hold this movie pretty dear. But as far as like an objective ranking, I thought 3.5 was about as high as I could go, though it's a high 3.5.
Well, someday and down the future, you may have to join Will and I do Sub-Zero.
See, I like Sub-Zero too. I just wish there was more movie to it. It just felt like it just felt like a made-for-TV episode. It just felt like 3 episodes or 2 episodes just cobbled together. I wish it got the movie treatment with the upscale in quality,
Yes.
a longer runtime, maybe more characters, because the story is great. It's just
Widescreen aspect ratio.
correct. It's just they had to stretch that, like this. You can summarize that movie in maybe 2 sentences, and they have to stretch that out for like 45 minutes to 50. And if they could have put more into that, I think that would have been a very good follow-up.
I think that they would have if the money and theatrical release had been there. So again, parallel universe. I just wish it had gotten the treatment
Agreed.
that this did. So I mean, they're both great. And in fairness, I just wanted more of these movies too.
Yes.
I wanted more of the TV show. And Kevin Conroy is dead now, and that's really sad. So we're not going to get this, but they did an X-Men '97 reboot, where we're getting literally our nostalgia that we love reserved us. They gave us what we wanted, more of what you loved as a kid, and they kept it true. And I wish we could have had this. So, but anyway, I'm going to go join you in the 4.5 star club.
Yes.
I love many parts of this as a kid. I love it as an adult. It is aged incredibly well, and stepping away from it, I won't step away from it this long again. It has made Grant even more enthusiastic for the show. We picked up some Batman the Animated Series. There's comic books, by the way, that are we picked up volumes of these things, and there's some continued adventures. They're really good.
Yes.
And so these stories and the animations look exactly like the cartoons. And that only makes me hunger for more. This is what I said. It's man, the episodes are right there. There's no shortage of content. I wish we could just have it because they're so good. I mean, if you really go back and count it up, we didn't actually fight Two-Face that many times. We didn't actually come against the Riddler that many times. You didn't come across each of these characters we love so much. They weren't in there that many times. The show didn't run as long as you might think it did.
Yeah,
but
Clayface.
It made a big impression.
Clayface maybe had 3 episodes. Mr. Freeze had 2, his first one, and then one where he's abducted by that Walt Disney-esque conglomerate who wants him to be who wants to become another Mr. Freeze with his long aging. And then he had his own movie. So I said, I'm 100%. I understand where you're coming from for sure, Russell.
Dustin, do you want to help me pick a movie for next time?
That's right. It's 2024, but we've got our new retro, and we are coming with 3 highly acclaimed horror movies from 2014, exactly 10 years ago. Option number 1, Honeymoon, 2014. A newlywed couple finds their lake country honeymoon descend into chaos after Paul finds Bea wandering and disoriented in the middle of the night. Option number 2, The Babadook, 2014. A single mother and her child fall into a deep well of paranoia when an eerie children's book titled Mr. Babadook manifests in their home. Or option number 3, It Follows, from 2014. A young woman is followed by an unknown supernatural force after a sexual encounter. What's it going to be?
Baba duck duck duck.
All right. It's time for your little man to join you again, huh?
not for a long time
for
on
the
that one.
Babadook. Give him ideas.
This is. I'm looking forward to this one though. This is another good movie followed up by this one. So, but this was a fun episode. I had a blast watching this one. I can't believe you read my mind. This is the movie I needed to do that I didn't even know I needed to do it. So
absolutely, I will add Dustin to that end. If you're going to do the Justice League Unlimited, definitely look for the episode epilogue. I want to say it's the season 2 finale. Basically, the Phantasm reappears. There are some Phantasm still does exist in pop culture. And in that instance, Justice League Unlimited episode, it is a Batman Beyond centered episode, but the talk about it, they do discuss, and the Phantasm does make a cameo appearance.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
If you want to play as the Phantasm, I would recommend getting Lego DC Supervillains, the video game. The DLC does feature the last 15 minutes as an episode. So you start off in the House of the Future fighting, and you see Hazel there going crazy, and it said you're all in little Lego form. And I said, it's just like the final 15 minutes of the movie stretched into 2 small episodes. But no, the Phantasm is still with us. And then in Lego Batman movie, you can find there's an advertisement for a perfume fragrance called Musk of the Phantasm. And then finally, that one's a great one. And then finally, if you are into the Arkham Origins, you can find in the Batman Arkham Origins video game, you can find letters in the Batcave written to Bruce by Andrea saying that she is looking for her father, and Bruce knows where to find her if he ever needs her. So she's still out there. Andrea, and then the latest Batman sorry, I don't mean to commandeer the last ending here. But the newest comic books issues of Batman and Catwoman. This is a series where Batman and Catwoman are a married couple. There is a small mini series where the Phantasm does show up, and she does come back to Gotham City, and it does kind of spiral into not exactly a love triangle, but it is kind of curious as to where the origins come from between the three.
Well, I think this is great for all of our listeners, too. It's like you can't get enough of the Phantasm, just like we couldn't get enough of this series. There's plenty more to go explore.
Absolutely.
But there's not yet been a musical written, Phantasm of the Opera yet.
No. Oh, wouldn't that be awesome, though?
That's great, too.
Thank you, lords, ladies, and knights, the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. So subscribe, rate, and review to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @movie_retro. Email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And producing and providing this podcast is fun but not free, so we invite you to support our show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Retro Movie Roundtable. All contributions are much appreciated and will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Dustin?
You want to get nuts? Come on. Let's get nuts.